Hello, my name's Jake. I'm 22 and I just started working at a logistics company about a month ago. It's not a dream job or anything. I'm not even sure what my dream job is, but it pays all right and I needed something steady. Life hasn't exactly been exciting lately, and I guess I was just drifting through the usual routine: wake up, work, sleep, repeat. When I first walked into that office, I didn't expect much. Same fluorescent lights, same tight deadlines, same tired faces. But within the first week, I met a guy named Sam. He was 25, a few years older than me, with this natural charm that made him instantly likable, the kind of guy who makes friends without trying. While most people just nodded or kept things professional, Sam cracked jokes, shared memes, and actually asked how your day was going and waited for the answer. We started having lunch together in the break room. Nothing major, just sandwiches and stupid conversations about movies, people watching, and guessing which coworker was secretly dating who. Over time, he felt more like a friend than just a colleague. I didn't even notice how quickly that happened, maybe because I needed that kind of energy in my life. One Thursday afternoon, we were stuck working overtime, filling out shipment reports that made my brain want to melt. Sam leaned over with this mischievous look in his eyes and said, "Dude, you ever had real lasagna? Like handmade, no frozen nonsense." I chuckled. I mean, cafeteria lasagna doesn't count, right? He laughed. Then no, you've never had it. Listen, tomorrow night, come over to my place. My mom makes it from scratch, like old school Italian style. It's insane. It sounded casual, but I could tell it meant something to him, inviting someone into your home, into that part of your life. It's more than just dinner. So Friday night rolls around. I grab a bottle of red wine on the way, something cheap but decent enough to not look like a total idiot. I drive through a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood I didn't even know existed. Big houses, well-kept lawns, that kind of peaceful suburban calm that makes you feel like you're intruding just by breathing too loud. I pull up to his place, 2 stories warm, porch light glowing, and Sam opens the door before I can even knock. Right on time, he says, clapping me on the back like we've known each other forever. "Come in, man. Seriously, you're going to love this." Inside, it smelled like garlic and roasted cheese comfort. He showed me the dining room, and before I could even sit, I heard footsteps from the kitchen. That's when I saw her, his mom, Mrs. Bennett, or Eli as I'd come to know her. She wasn't what I expected at all. No apron, no tired eyes, no mom vibes. She had this energy to her, elegant calm, like someone who had seen the world and didn't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Her dress was simple, but she wore it like it was made for her. Her dark blonde hair was pulled back neatly, and when she looked at me, really looked at me, it was like she already knew things I hadn't even figured out about myself yet. "Jake, right?" she said, stepping forward with a small but confident smile. Her voice was low and smooth, like warm coffee on a cold morning. "Sam's mentioned you." I smiled awkwardly. "All good things, I hope." She tilted her head just slightly, her eyes locking onto mine. "Depends what you mean by good." That moment stuck with me. There was something in her tone, not flirtation, not sarcasm, just mystery. Dinner was unreal. Sam talked the whole time, telling stories from when he was a kid, cracking jokes at his own expense, and hyping up his mom's cooking like it was sacred. I laughed more that evening than I had in weeks. But between the stories, the food, and the wine, I kept noticing Eli, the way she glanced at me when I wasn't speaking, the way her fingers lingered on the rim of her glass, her calmer voice. Once or twice, our eyes met just a second too long. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Sam put on some old action movie and promptly fell asleep halfway through, curled up under a blanket, like he was 10 years old again. I stayed seated on the other side of the couch, unsure whether I should sneak out or wait. Eventually, I stood up to leave. Eli walked me to the door. She didn't say much at first, just opened it gently, the cool night air spilling in. Then she looked at me, her expression unreadable. "You're welcome here any time, Jake," she said softly. I nodded, said, "Thanks," and stepped out onto the porch. But the way she said it, it echoed in my mind the entire drive home. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the quiet confidence in her voice, the way she carried herself, the look in her eyes. Something had changed. I didn't know what yet, but I knew it wasn't nothing. The following week at work felt off, not in a bad way, just different. I couldn't focus the same. My mind kept drifting back to Friday night, to Eli, to her voice, her eyes, the quiet intensity of her presence, and the way she said, "You're welcome here anytime," like it wasn't just about dinner. Sam and I still had lunch together like usual, laughing over stupid stuff, but I found myself studying his face more, watching for any sign that he knew something. Of course he didn't. Why would he? Nothing had happened. Not really. But something in me had shifted, and I couldn't pretend otherwise. By Wednesday, I couldn't help myself. I texted him casually, "Hey, if your mom's making that lasagna again, I'd kill for another invite." Ha ha. He replied, "She's making pot roast this weekend. You and I was." Saturday rolled around. I showed up with dessert, this time a box of those overpriced bakery cookies. Eli answered the door herself. She wore jeans and a soft gray sweater, and somehow that hit harder than the dress from last week. It made her feel real, like someone I could sit next to on a quiet morning, drinking coffee, sharing silence. She smiled. "Jake, you brought sweets. Smart man." I shrugged, trying to earn my spot at the table. She looked at me for a moment longer than needed, then stepped aside. "You've already got it." Dinner was warm, familiar, but underneath it all, the same energy buzzed between us. When she poured wine, our fingers touched. She didn't pull away fast, and neither did I. When Sam stepped out to take a phone call, we were left alone for a few minutes in the kitchen. I helped her rinse dishes. Not a word was said for a moment, just the sound of water and soft clings of plates. Then she looked up at me and asked quietly, "You okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I don't know. You have a peaceful house." She smiled, but it was sad somehow. It wasn't always this peaceful. I didn't ask for details. I didn't have to. I could see it in her eyes, the weight of years of loss, of holding a family together alone. I felt something tighten in my chest, not pity, respect, maybe something more. Later that evening, Sam passed out early again, something about drinking too much at a buddy's place the night before. Eli and I ended up on the back porch sipping wine under the patio lights. The night was cool, quiet, and unreal. She leaned back, her legs crossed, swirling her glass gently. "You're different, Jake. Most of Sam's friends talk too loud and stay on their phones." I smiled. "I guess I'm boring then." "No," she said, looking at me. "You listen. That's rare." There was a silence, not awkward, just heavy with something unspoken. I wanted to say something, anything, but the moment felt too fragile to touch. Instead, I just looked at her. She looked back, and in that stillness, I felt it, the pull. I stood up after a while, not wanting to ruin the moment, but needing to leave before I said or did something I couldn't take back. She walked me to the door again, and just like last time, paused before I stepped outside. "I'm glad you came," she said. This time I didn't say thank you. I just nodded, holding her gaze longer than I probably should have. And when I left, I knew something was happening, something real. After that night on the porch, nothing felt the same. Not the office, not the small talk with Sam, not even my own apartment. It was like something inside me had been set in motion, slow and silent, but now it couldn't be ignored. I'd cross paths with Sam in the hallway and feel this pit in my stomach. He was still the same joking, easygoing, offering half of his sandwich at lunch, but I wasn't. I had changed because every time he said, "My mom made this," or mentioned something she did, all I could think about was the way she looked at me under those patio lights. The sound of her voice when she said, "You're welcome here, anytime." It hadn't just been polite hospitality. I knew it now. I could feel it in my chest like a drum beat. So when Sam said he was going to be out of town for the weekend, some concert with college friends, I nodded like it didn't matter. Nice man. Hope it's a good one. Inside, my heart dropped straight into my stomach. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, turning it over in my head like a coin I couldn't stop flipping. Should I text her? Should I go? Should I just let this die? And then I grabbed my phone. Jake. Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for last weekend. Dinner was amazing. I waited. My screen stayed dark for a bit. Then Eli. You're very welcome, Jake. I enjoyed our conversation. I stared at her reply longer than I should have. Then I typed pause, deleted, typed again. Jake, would it be too weird if I stopped by tomorrow? Three dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Eli, not weird at all. Come by around 5, I'll make tea. I locked my phone and sat there, palms sweating. That whole night I didn't sleep. The next day crawled. I tried reading, walking, even cleaning my kitchen, anything to distract myself. But I was already in the car, hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. Her house looked the same as before, warm, inviting. I walked up to the door, heart thudding like I was about to commit a crime. And in a way, maybe I was, at least that's how it felt. Eli opened the door and everything stopped. She was in a soft gray sweater, jeans, barefoot. Her hair fell around her shoulders like it was meant to be that way. Nothing fancy, nothing done up. And somehow that made her more beautiful than ever. Hey, she said softly, right on time. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and something herbal. She lit a candle, or maybe she just always had that scent floating around. I wasn't sure. I couldn't focus on anything but the way her presence filled the room. We sat in the kitchen, tea steamed between us untouched. We talked about little things, movies, old books, how autumn was finally showing its face. Her voice was gentle, calm, but there was a current under her words. I could feel it. At one point, I said something dumb about how I never got into tea until recently, and she laughed a real laugh, eyes squinting slightly, as she reached across the table and touched my wrist. That single moment burned like fire. She didn't pull away quickly. Neither did I. Our hands didn't even really move. We just sat there, locked in some invisible thread that had been growing between us for weeks. I think about you, I said suddenly, my voice cracking slightly, a lot more than I probably should. I didn't plan to say it, but I wasn't sorry. Eli didn't act surprised. She just looked at me, hands now folded in her lap. Her eyes were calm, but something flickered behind them. I've noticed, she said, and I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about it too. The silence stretched. The clock ticked somewhere behind us. A car drove by outside, and then almost without meaning to, I leaned in. She didn't stop me. Our lips met, quiet, slow, careful. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't rushed. It was something else, something real. When we finally pulled away, she rested her forehead against mine. We have to be careful, she whispered. I know, I said, and I meant it, but I also knew I'd do it again. Whatever line we just crossed, there was no going back. The kiss changed everything. I knew it the second I got home that night. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I sat in my apartment in the dark, going over every second of what happened. Her lips, her hands, her voice whispering, we have to be careful. That line replayed in my mind over and over. We have to be careful. But careful turned out to be more difficult than I thought. I told myself we'd pull back, that maybe it was just one moment, a perfect, impulsive moment that didn't need to turn into anything more. But I was back at her house. Sam was still out of town. Eli had texted me, Eli, if you're around, the kettle's on. I read it a dozen times before replying. Jake, on my way. That night was different. We didn't kiss. We didn't touch. We just talked for hours about everything, her late husband, how she'd been alone for 7 years, about how the house felt too quiet sometimes, how the only people who ever truly saw her as her, not someone's mom or someone's wife, were people who barely knew her. And that's when she looked at me and said, I feel like I know you more than people I've known for decades. I don't know how long we sat in that stillness, maybe a minute, maybe an hour, but I knew then we weren't going to be able to undo this. The following weekend, Sam was back. We grabbed drinks like nothing was different. I pretended everything was fine. I laughed, I joked, I high-fived him when his favorite team scored, but something in me was off balance. I felt like I was cheating on him, even though I hadn't technically done anything wrong, not in the conventional sense. But emotionally, yeah, I'd crossed every line. The next few weeks were a blur. I started coming by when I knew Sam was at work or out with friends. Once Eli even messaged me while Sam was upstairs asleep. Eli, he's napping. If you're close, just come through the back door. My heart pounded so hard when I read that I thought I might actually pass out, but I went. For the next 40 minutes, we sat on the back porch again, sharing tea and whispers. I held her hand under the table. She kissed me once quickly before I left through the back gate. It was intoxicating, like living a double life, but not the glamorous kind, the fragile, shaky kind where one wrong step could break everything. And then everything nearly did. It was a Sunday afternoon. I stopped by to drop off a book Eli had mentioned weeks ago. Sam was out running errands, but he came home early. I was in the kitchen with Eli. We weren't doing anything, just talking, but our body language must have said more than words ever could. Sam walked in, saw us standing a little too close, and froze. Hey, he said, his voice light, but with something clipped underneath it. Didn't know you were here, Jake. I cleared my throat. Yeah, just dropping off that book I told you about. He looked at me, then at his mom. Cool. Well, I'm starving. You guys eat yet? The rest of that hour was excruciating. Forced smiles, half-finished sentences. Eli looked pale. I could feel her shaking slightly beside me, even though her face was composed. When I left, I knew it wasn't over. Sam had seen something he just didn't know exactly what. That night, I got a text from him, Sam. Hey, can I ask you something? I stared at my phone for a solid 5 minutes before replying. Jake, yeah, what's up? Sam, are you into my mom or something? My stomach dropped. I typed deleted. Typed again, then finally sent Jake. Why would you ask that? He replied almost immediately. Sam, you look at her different. I noticed it last time. Just be straight with me. I stared at the screen. My hands were numb. I didn't reply, not that night. The next day at work, he acted like nothing happened. Either he decided to ignore it or he was waiting for me to bring it up, but I didn't, and neither did he. I told Eli everything that night. She was quiet, calm, and she said something that surprised me. If he ever confronts us again, we'll tell the truth. We're not doing anything wrong, Jake. I looked at her stunned. Aren't we? She reached across the table, took my hand in hers. We're adults. We're not hurting anyone. The only reason it feels wrong is because we've convinced ourselves it is. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, but that didn't make it easier. A few days later, something happened that I didn't expect. Sam called in sick to work. I checked on him after my shift just to be polite. When I got to their house, Eli answered the door surprised. He's in his room, she whispered. I walked in, knocked softly. He was sitting on his bed, scrolling his phone. When he saw me, he nodded, but his face was cold. Hey, I said, hey. I stood there for a second, then sat in the chair by his desk. You good? He shrugged. I don't know. Just tired. There was a long pause. Then he looked right at me. You still seen to her when I'm not around. I didn't speak. He nodded slowly. I thought so. And then to my surprise, he didn't yell, didn't throw a punch. He just stood up, walked to the door, and said, do whatever you want, man. I just can't be around for it. He left the room, and just like that, the wall cracked. That night, Eli and I sat on the couch in silence. The TV played some rerun in the background, but we didn't watch. He knows, I said quietly. She nodded. I thought he might. I leaned my head back, eyes closed. What now? She reached over, took my hand in hers. We move forward slowly, carefully, but we don't stop. And I believed her because in her presence, everything still felt right. Complicated, messy, but real. And I wasn't ready to let go. A week passed, then two. I didn't hear from Sam. He didn't show up to work. His desk stayed empty. His emails auto-replied with out of office. I texted him once, you all right? And got nothing back. Not even the 3 dots that tell you someone's typing, just silence. At first, I told myself he just needed time. But the longer it went on, the heavier it got. I knew I owed him more than a text, but I also knew that if I saw him face to face, I'd have to look him in the eye and accept exactly what I'd done. And maybe I wasn't ready for that. Eli and I kept seeing each other not every day, but enough a quiet dinner on Wednesday coffee early Saturday morning before her yoga class, a long walk through a park on the other side of town where no one knew us. We never labeled it. She didn't call me her boyfriend. I didn't ask her to. It was just us, like something we had built in secret and both agreed to protect. It wasn't flashy or passionate in the way people imagine taboo romances are. It was slower, softer, real, but the guilt didn't go away. I remember one night we were sitting on the floor of her living room, a vinyl record playing softly in the background. She leaned her head on my shoulder, eyes half closed, and whispered, "Do you ever wish we'd met another way?" I didn't answer at first, just held her hand tighter. Then I said no. I just wish it didn't have to cost us so much. That was the truth. I didn't regret her, but I hated what it had done to Sam. The confrontation came a few days later. I was leaving Eli's house, nothing unusual. We hadn't done anything wrong that night, just dinner, soft conversation, the kind of connection that grows in the quiet. I stepped outside, walked down the path to my car, and Sam was there leaning against the passenger side door, hoodie up, arms crossed. My heart dropped into my stomach. We locked eyes. He didn't speak, not for a solid 10 seconds. Then quietly, "You really didn't stop, huh?" I opened my mouth to say something, but what? That it wasn't what he thought, that it was more than he thought, that I was sorry, that I wasn't. He beat me to it. Look, he said, "I don't need an explanation anymore. I've spent the last couple weeks trying to figure out whether I was more pissed at you or at her. And you know what? I'm done trying." I stepped closer. "Sam." He held up a hand. "Just let me finish." I stopped. He took a breath. "I'm not going to lie, it messed me up seeing you two like that. The fact that you didn't say anything, that you let it happen behind my back. That'll take time to swallow. But here's what I've realized. She's not just my mom. She's a woman who's been alone for years, who deserves to be seen and loved and touched." His voice cracked slightly. He paused, collected himself. "If that person's you, then so be it." I just stared at him. I didn't expect that. Not the calm, not the clarity. Then he looked down, kicked at a rock on the pavement. "But don't expect me to be around, man, not for now. Maybe not ever. It's not hate. I can't be the guy who watches this happen." He turned and started walking. Before he got too far, I said quietly, "I didn't mean for this to happen." He stopped, looked over his shoulder. "No one ever does." And then he was gone. That was the last time I saw him. Eli watched the whole thing from the front window. She didn't say anything when I came back inside. She just walked up to me, slowly wrapped her arms around me, and held on. That night, she didn't ask me to leave. I didn't want to. Months passed, seasons changed, people stopped asking questions. We didn't go public, not really, but we didn't hide in shadows either. I stopped coming over when Sam might be around. She stopped checking over her shoulder at the grocery store. We just lived. I moved out of my apartment, got a place closer to her, but not in the same house. We needed space. We needed to do this right. And somehow, through all the quiet chaos, we grew stronger. I met her friends not as Sam's friend, but as Jake, just Jake. She introduced me, carefully, slowly, but with pride. We'd cook dinner together, watch documentaries, argue about music, plan weekend getaways where we could be ourselves fully. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was real. The last time I thought about walking away was the night she told me about a dream she had, one where she was standing alone in the field, and I just walked up, took her hand, and said, "You waited long enough." She told it like it was nothing, just a dream, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's when I knew I wasn't going anywhere. It's been a year now. People still raise eyebrows sometimes when they figure out the connection when they do the math. But we don't owe anyone anything. We chose this. And even though it came at a cost one I still carry, I know where we're supposed to be. Sometimes late at night when I'm lying beside her and she's fast asleep, I think about that first dinner, how one simple invite changed everything. He introduced me to his mom, but I never expected it would lead to this. The story of Jake and Eli offers a profound life lesson about the delicate balance between following our hearts and respecting the relationships that shape us. Their unexpected connections, sparked by a simple dinner, evolved into a deep, undeniable bond that challenged societal norms and personal loyalties. Jake's struggle with his feelings for Eli, his friend's mother, and the eventual loss of his friendship with Sam teach us that love can come at a steep cost, requiring courage to embrace and wisdom to navigate. Eli's vulnerability and Jake's willingness to see her as more than a role reveal the power of authentic human connection. Yet Sam's pain underscores the importance of considering the impact of our choices on others. This emotional journey reminds us to approach love with honesty and care, acknowledging that even the most meaningful relationships can carry consequences that ripple beyond ourselves. It's a heartfelt call to cherish those rare moments of connection while remaining mindful of the boundaries that protect the people we hold dear. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever faced a choice where love clashed with loyalty? Your stories inspire and unite our community. If this tale stirred your heart, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to join our journey of raw emotional storytelling. Let's keep exploring life's complex lessons together.